All right, guys. Excuse me. Fuck. I have been making, please like and subscribe. I have been making and continue to make predictions regarding this election. And I continue to stand with the fact that I believe Kamala Harris will end up winning this election. James Carville, the Democratic strategist, came out and said he doesn't necessarily think this will be a close election, even though the polling shows it to be a very, very close race, statistically tied in all of these swing states still to this point. But that the polling has been off in one way or another in every single of the last election cycles going back to 2016, where Trump had a massive shift in his direction on election day. Again, same thing in 2020, and then the opposite happening in 2022 with a potential rejection of the abortion policy of the Republican, as well as the other extreme elements of the Trump and MAGA wing, et cetera, et cetera. Um, the polling continues to be exceptionally close. However, we have a fascinating poll here coming from the southern wing, swing state, election polling center here. Exclusive polling here in Florida, Georgia, and North Carolina. And this is really what we need. This is what the people want, all right, in terms of how we're going to figure out what's happening in this election. And when you go into the top line numbers here, okay, and you ask, they did a lot of polling. They asked people about Joe Biden's approval rating, how is Congress doing, etc. Um, and then they asked people if the presidential election were held today, how would you vote if your options were Republican Donald Trump or Democrat Kamala Harris? And on average, again, these are between Florida, which voted very strongly for Trump in the last election, Georgia, which was a very close, slim margin um, for Joe Biden in the last election, then North Carolina, very slim victory for Donald Trump. These results are absolutely fascinating, and we'll get into more of that why. But you have a dead tie, 48% to 48% between these two candidates. Florida, you have Kamala Harris trailing 1 point behind Donald Trump, 5% of people unsure of what they're going to do. Georgia, you have Kamala Harris with a 2 percentage point lead. And then in North Carolina, you have Kamala Harris with a 1 percentage point lead. So again, these are three states that are swing states. And you could categorize all of these as Republican leaning swing states, right? Especially nowadays, Florida is very red. Or at least they love the politics or the political styles of your Trumps and your DeSantises, and that has been proven in the last several election cycles. Georgia has been a Republican state for years, right? It's like a classic Southern state, just become more diverse and has shifted its views and its sensibilities to the Democratic Party in the last several elections. Maybe a rejection of the extreme nature of the modern Republican Party, and a similar trend with North Carolina happening. We're seeing it happen in Texas as well. Um, that's not all with this poll, because they got into the political makeup, right? The leanings of these polls. If you're on the right, you might look at this and say, "No, well, they must have, it's impossible. How could she be 1 point behind Trump in Florida and 2 points in Georgia? They must have surveyed only Democrats. It must be a Democrat leaning poll, and that's the end of it." Well, no. The reality is that when you go into the political leaning, you ask people, do you lean progressive liberal on that end of the scale, or do you lean staunch conservative or as far right as you can possibly go? The results are in every single one of these uh, populations of polling, they surveyed on average more conservatively than they did democratically or progressive or liberal, however you want to put it. They ended up with a larger faction of centrists, of independent, and that again, over and over, we see that as being the larger constituency in the United States. There's desperation for another party at this point. There's a rejection of this, two-party or monoparty system where, a lot of people think Republican, Democrat, what's the difference? They all just cut taxes and, increase the military budget and continue to hollow out the middle class. A lot of people identifying as independent. But again, when it was North Carolina, and you can go in and do the math for yourself, right? They ended up with polling more conservatively, Georgia more conservative, and Florida more conservative. And the top line result is that you have a dead tie. People still voting or wanting to put their vote or intending, at least in this poll, to say that they're going to vote for Kamala Harris and not for Donald Trump. Um, and then, excuse him, which, if you go over to our esteemed, excellent, tremendous election map, and you sort of bake in those results, you have a 1 point lead in this poll in North Carolina. You have a 2 point lead in Georgia. We assume that if North Carolina and Georgia go blue, then also would Nevada follow as well. Um, you look at just a building on um of what Joe Biden was able to do with his election. And I feel like well, I guess we're keeping Arizona red. I feel strongly that Arizona just doesn't mess with Kamala Harris, guys. So I continue to keep that the way it is. And you guys know my thoughts on Wisconsin. But if this ends up being the map, this is a realistic map, right at this point. If I can tell you, hey, I think she's chipped away enough in North Carolina and Georgia and Michigan and Pennsylvania, then this is a realistic map. And then even if the weaknesses sort of pull through in Pennsylvania, she still ends up winning, holding on to Nevada, which has been a real stronghold for Democrats in recent elections, holding on to Michigan, another one of those strongholds, and then flipping North Carolina and holding on to Georgia, then Kamala Harris still wins. It is polling like this where again you're not oversampling liberals, you're actually undersampling and oversampling, sorry, undersampling Democrats, oversampling conservatives, and you still end up with scenarios where Kamala Harris is coming out ahead when that might not even reflect the actual demographics that turn out on election day. You could potentially look at a stronger victory than even that. Like, I'm not saying that's what I think is going to happen. I think these states are going to be close. Again, a few thousand votes in North Carolina, a few thousand votes in Georgia separating the winner and the loser. But that, it's really, this is the reason why I say it now. I was honest when Joe Biden was getting, demolished in the polls. I said it's over. He has no chance of winning. He's going to lose Pennsylvania, Michigan, Nevada, Arizona. He was going to lose everything, right? He was going to lose Colorado, right? He was going to lose New Mexico. Uh, the way I see it, and I'll leave the map like this for now, so you sort of know where my mindset is. This is an outcome that I could perceive happening just going off of the sort of moment that we're in, the data that we have, and the trends that we're seeing. I don't think Donald Trump is running a particularly good campaign. Kamala Harris is now, on average, favorable. She has a favorability rating that's positive. You need that if you're a Democrat. Trump continues to be underwater. He is the least popular vice presidential candidate in the history of modern politics. And the trends are what they are, right? Kamala can lose Arizona. She can lose Pennsylvania even, but if she holds on to, some of these sort of new Democratic states, these new Democrat states, um, then she wins the election anyway, right? So again, lots of strength on the board for Kamala, plenty of weaknesses. You still got to go out. You still got to vote. You got to make it happen, whichever side you're on. And that's that. That will do it for now. Let me know what you guys think. I'm very curious to be part of the conversation. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.